All right, everybody. Happy Tuesday. A couple more days till we get a nice 3-day weekend. What we're going to do today is work on a timer, but before we get to that, let's recap what we did yesterday during yesterday's session because that was a very important step for us. That was where we started to add some real functionality to our game, and that being to show when a player has scored a goal. So what we did is we took the 3D model of the goal that we had and we put it in a new blueprint called BP goal. I'll go back over here to the viewport. So we put it in there, we rotated it correctly, and we added this very important invisible box. And this is a box collision, which essentially serves as a trigger. So anytime something collides with this box, we can do things. And that is exactly what we did here, where we said when something overlaps with the box or collides with the box, we're going to print string and say overlapped. And then we also set a code reminder for us to only do this for the ball. Okay. And then when we go back to our game and test it out, what we'll see is I'll just right click and play from here that when the ball goes through the goal, we should get that print string message. And we do. Overlapped. Okay, very cool. So now our game has some real functionality. Overlapped. All right, now what I'm going to do is show you what we will be building for today's session. So I just need to hook something up real quick here. What we're going to do today is we're going to create a timer that's going to count down actually from 60, but in this demo, I'll just do 15 seconds so we don't have to sit through it. But it's going to create a timer, and when the timer gets to 0, it's going to pause the game, wait for just a little bit, and then restart. Because if you remember, the goal of our game is we want to see how many goals points that we can score in 60 seconds. So to demonstrate that, I'll press play. You'll notice there's a timer up above. And I'm just going to run around, and I'd like for you guys to see what happens when it hits 0 and I continue to run. It paused everything and then it restarted. So that is what we are going to do today. And again, that's going to give us some more practice with working in blueprints. Okay. So we're going to create a user interface item. And obviously, a user interface is the buttons and clicks and information, everything that you see on the screen when you're not just playing a game, but working with any kind of software. So if you think about playing Roblox or Fortnite or Minecraft, what are some of the messages you see on the screen or some of the things you can click? So there's like a chat box. There's in Minecraft, you have your tool at the bottom, your tools. And then there's messages that happen during the game based on gameplay events, I think in all three of those. Okay, so now we're going to work with a new kind of item. So I want you to go, actually, stay in your blueprints folder if you have one. If you don't, you can just do it in your regular content folder. And we're going to right click and we're going to scroll down till we see something called user interface. And we want to click a widget blueprint. And we can just click the common one, user widget. And I'm going to name this WBP for widget blueprint underscore UI, short for user interface. Okay. So let's go ahead and save up everything and open this up. And you're just going to see a blank screen just like this because we Don't have anything put into it. But I do want you to look over here. We could add checkboxes, borders, images, basically any kind of thing that you could see in any software program or game or even a website. The very first thing we need to do when building a screen is a canvas. So you will almost always start with that. So I'm going to go up here to the palette and search for canvas. And I can just click, drag, and hold and throw that in here. And that is the canvas. And you probably noted it's the size of like a laptop or a computer screen, because that's what it is really. This is a holder for the various things that we want to add into our user interface. And tonight we're just going to add a simple timer. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to search for text. And we want just this regular one here, a simple static text widget. And again, we can drag that into here. You could move it around manually. Maybe you want your clock to be in the upper right corner or down here. And you'll notice, just like with a lot of other things in Unreal Engine, we can select it over here on the left, and then we have some options over here on the right. So what I want to do is I want to center it at the top of my user interface. And the way that I'll do that is I will go to this very first option here, and that is anchors. And I'm going to say, okay, I want to anchor to the top. And once I do that, you'll notice nothing really happened. But now what I need to do is I need to reset all of these things. So I'm going to reset the offset left, and I'm going to reset the position Y, and I'm going to reset the offset right. And I'm also going to, actually, I'm going to put this to 0. So I got zeroed all of these out. And now, just like you would with Microsoft Word or Google Docs, you can change the font. So I'm going to leave everything as is, but I'm going to change this to 80 and press Tab. All right, that gives me a nice big clock. Okay, and next I want to scroll down just a little bit more, and I want to align the text to the center. Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to compile and save. So we have it in here, but we have to tell it what to do, right? So just like the blueprints have a viewport and an event graph, the widget blueprint, the user interface, has this visual part, which is called the designer. So you could think of it kind of like the viewport, but it also has a graph. So if we click that, we get our familiar event tick, all that good stuff, all these nodes that we can add. Now, what I'm going to do is delete these two because we don't need those. And we need to create two variables before we get started. One is we're going to call seconds. That's how many seconds the clock is at. Make this a little bigger. Okay. And this will be a float because it is a number. Now I'm going to compile and save. And once you compile and save, now with this variable selected, on the right here, we can set the default value all the way at the bottom. So we're going to say 60 seconds. We're going to give our players 1 minute. Okay. The second variable we need to create is the game over? So I'll click here. We'll do game over. This is a yes or no, and those are called Boolean variables, or true or false, yes or no, same thing. Compile, save that, and we're going to leave this to be off, meaning no, the game is not over. All right. So let's then grab something out of our event tick, and we're going to do a if statement like, excuse me, if it's raining, bring the umbrella. Otherwise, if it's not raining, don't bring the umbrella. Think of it like that. So we'll grab out of here, we'll type if. It's also called a branch in Unreal Engine. Okay. And now we want to drag over our game over. And just drag it in here, get the value of the variable, and we're going to click it and connect it right here by clicking that red pin on this one and connecting it to this one. Okay. So we're going to say get the game over. If the game over is true, we're going to pause the game. Remember that, like how we did it in the example I showed you, it paused it for a few seconds. So we'll click out of here and we'll type set game paused. And then we will click here to yes, pause the game. Okay, compile, save again. And now let's look at the next bit. Okay, so let's say it's false, meaning the game is not over. Okay, let's click a delay or add a delay. Just type delay. You'll be using a lot of delays in game development. And we'll just wait for 1 second. And then what we want to do next is we want to grab our seconds left. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to drag this in, get seconds, and at the very beginning, it's going to be 60, right? Okay, so what we're going to do next is decrement, and I know that's not a super illustrative word, but that's what it's called, decrement float. And all that's going to do is subtract 1 from whatever this is. In fact, let me go over that because decrement is not a word I hear a whole lot of either. Okay, so after the delay, we are going to decrement a second from our seconds. So this is going to erase or subtract 1 second. Okay, and then let's, from right here, do a print string. And we're going to hook this up to here. And it'll convert it. That's what this, why it added that extra. So let's go ahead and compile and save. And let's press play and see what happens. Okay. Actually, I need to change something in my level here. Just a sec. Disconnect this. Okay. All right. Compile and save. So what we did here, I'll close that again. I'll open this back up. We wrote some code here. Now this should show us a print string. So let's go and press play. And you notice, well, we don't see anything. Well, why is that? Well, an important part of the user interface, the widget, is we have to tell the game to show it. So right now we've created it, but we're not saying, hey, when we play the game, show this thing here that we've created. So we're going to go back to your main level. Click right here and go to Open Level Blueprint. Okay, and I've already done all this, so I'm going to move this away so we can kind of do it from scratch. So your level blueprint, and I know this is a lot of information, so we'll probably have to watch the video again, but remember, I do always have office hours on Friday too, and we can meet one-on-one. Because there's a lot in our 30 minutes tonight. But a level blueprint is everything that happens when the game starts in the level. So what we need to do is we need to say, when we start the game, we need to create a widget. Okay. The owning player is, okay, who's going to see this widget? Obviously, an AI character or one of our props doesn't need to see the timer. Only the player needs to see it, right? So for owning player, we'll drag out of here and we'll type get player controller. So that's going to say, all right, we're going to build a widget and we're going to show it to the player. And from here, class, we should see the UI that we created. Okay. So this is saying which widget is it? Because sometimes you have a lot of widgets, right? Like in a shooting game, you might have a health bar on one side. You might have your selected weapon on the other side. You might have a mini map, a compass. So you might have a lot of different widgets. And then after we do that, all we have to do is say add to viewport. Viewport being your screen. Okay. And then like many other things, usually when you see two blues, you need to hook those up. Compile that and save. And now we should see some of our print strings. Here we go. See, it's decrementing, right? 55, 54, 53, 52. But the text block doesn't do anything, but that's okay because we're going to fix that next. Okay, it's looking good. All right, so we'll go back to this, back to your graph. And then this worked. Okay, that's good. So now we're just going to do the end game stuff. So I'm going to go and I'm going to create I'll delete the print string. The print string is good for testing, just to make sure stuff's working. But once you've verified that, you can usually delete those. Those are just usually for debugging. So out of this decrement, this is our thing that's going to take 1 second off, right? Every frame of the game. So here, let's do another branch or if, whatever you like to type. And we want to do another check. So as this goes from 60 to 50 to 35 to 20 to 10, 9, 8, at some point it's going to be 0. And when it is 0, then we want to pause our game. Okay, so out of this branch, we're going to get game over. And we're going to connect these here. And we're going to check this. Where's it? Is it a checkbox? I can't see. Oh, okay. I think it's true. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I am so sorry. No, we are going to set the game over. Okay. So bring this in here. Set game over. Okay. Very important. And then we also need to get. So we did need that get, but I hooked it up in the wrong place. Get. So if game over is true, we're going to set the game over. Okay. So let's test this out and then let's reduce the time here so we don't have to wait for 60 seconds. So we'll just do 5 seconds. Oop. 5. Tab. Okay. Compile and save. And let's see what happens here. Oh, I shouldn't have taken the print string off because now we can't see. Okay, so let's go back and take a look at this. We are here. We're going to say where this is where we're decrementing. Okay. And let's add this print string back. So I'm going to go back here and add the print string again, just so we can see what the time is. And we'll move some of these guys around here so we can see things. Yeah, this one, that's the one I want to move. Okay. And then we're going to go here. So let's try that. What I did was I just basically brought the print string I accidentally deleted a minute or so ago. So let's compile, save, and let's see what happens. We'll press play, and now we get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. But look what happens. It doesn't stop or pause the game. It just keeps removing another second, and we're going into the negative territory. So we have a couple more things we need to do. We need to change the condition not to game over, but the condition is going to be is seconds greater than or less than or equal than 0. So we're going to get seconds, drag out here, and type less or equal to 0. That is the condition. Okay. That's true, we're going to set the game over. And if it's false, we're not going to do anything. So let's try that and see if that has changed anything. We'll go back, compile, save, go to the game, press play. There's the counter, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And yes, it did pause the game. All right, so we're almost there. It pauses the game. That's what we want. But in the demo I showed you, after a couple seconds, it reloaded the level and restarted the timer. So let's do that real quick. That's a pretty easy one. So after we set the game is game over, which will then pause it. Let's do a delay, another delay. And we'll wait maybe 2 seconds. And then we're going to open the level right back up. And the way that we can do that is to, after our 2-second delay, we'll type open level by name. And this is the name of our level, soccer, right? You can see at the top here, that's the name of mine. If yours is something different, you have to be sure you enter it exactly how you spelled it. But mine is called soccer, so I'm going to do that. Compile, save, and we'll check one more time. Press play. I'm just going to move around and it should delay. And there we go. Starts right back up with 4 seconds left. Let's just test it out a few more times. Freezes the game and then respawns us. Okay. Now, last thing before we wrap up, let's get that actual text box working. The one we created where we, over here in the designer, right? we created this text box, and we want this to actually show the time. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, text box, I want you to not say text box. I want you to use whatever value is in that variable we created here, which was called seconds. Okay. So we're going to say, hey, use that seconds value. The way that we do that is we're going to go and where it says content text block, like if I change this to something else, it would do that. But we want to bind it, right, to that variable. So if you see this thing that looks like a link, almost like a URL link, they create binding, and that'll automatically put this code in for us. Okay, so that we only have to do drag in get seconds. That's going to be what's the current time. Okay, and then we're going to connect this to that right there. It's going to do us a little favor by converting the number to text. Okay, and now if we compile and save, we should see, there we go. So it's the same value that's in our print string, because you can still see kind of faintly, but you can see that light blue counter on the left. All right, that is looking good. Let's do a little tidying up. So, okay. So we don't need to see the print string anymore. That did its job to help us kind of or just do some debugging and troubleshooting. So let's go back to our tick. And now this we don't need. So you can delete that. This can just go right into here. Let's compile and save that. Test it out, make sure our countdown still works. It does. And then we're not seeing the print screen over here. So that's good. All right, last thing is let's go back to our widget blueprint, to our seconds, and let's put this back at 60. That'll be all the way down. It'll say default value. Let's put it back at 60. And we'll compile and save that. And now when we go back to play our game, it should be 60 seconds, which gives us a little more time to score goals like that. Overlapped. So what we might do, what we are going to do, is instead of that debug message that says overlapped, we're going to create another widget that's going to say like score and play a sound or something, something to get the player excited that they just scored a goal. So we learned a lot today about user interface and a special kind of blueprint called a widget blueprint, and how they give us information, give the player information, how we hook them up and attach them to our level. And I'm going to let this go to 0 just to make sure it, in fact, this will be fun to jump on this thing. See if we kind of freeze in the midair. Yep, there we go. All right. Any questions?
No.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing you guys' projects. Tomorrow we'll be meeting tomorrow and Thursday. Friday is the holiday, but I'll still be around all over the weekend. If you guys have any questions at all, let me know, and otherwise, I will see you tomorrow.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
guys.
you.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.